Yes, ma'am. All right, well, thank you, Professor Foley, for that introduction. TJ Holmes, I'm so excited that you're here.
Man, so this is the guy guiding young journalism lives here about truth and telling the truth, and he got up here and lied so much to y'all just saying about my background. Just lies. But yeah, Foley was my guy, he was my go-to guy. Some of that was true, some of it he absolutely elaborated or exaggerated on for sure. But
well, the truth is that your real name is Lutilius.
oh yes, so
correct?
he's telling you not to change your name, and that was my first 3 pieces in my professional career. I signed off on the first one as Lutilius Holmes, second one I signed off as Lou Holmes, and the third one I signed off as TJ Holmes. Now the TJ, for you guys, I'm named after my dad, who's Lutilius Holmes Sr. now, but he was named after a great uncle that we had. Before that, not sure where the name came from, but as a nickname, he was growing up, they called him Little T, just T as a nickname. So I came along as Lutilius Holmes Jr. Everybody in my family calls me T Jr. And I was looking for something to go with on TV. And so TJ is made up. My family doesn't call me TJ, it's T Jr. But it's my favorite thing to do when I go visit young students. I say, I'll give anybody here like a free trip to Hawaii if you figure out what the T and the J stand for. And it stands for nothing. But that's the story, please.
That's incredible. Okay, so you made the trip all the way from New York to Fayetteville. So how does it feel to be back on your old stomping grounds? Does it bring up any old memories?
Yeah, of course it does. I mean, this was everything to me. This is where I became an adult, essentially. This is home. This is the university that put me on the track to be where I am now. So this university, this campus is everything to me. And I've come back, and I usually come back. I've been with the Chancellor's Board of Advisors for several years, and I usually get back on a football weekend. But I mean, I can't think, if you all don't know, Jeff and Marcia here in the front row here, you all, these are the Johnson Fellows, right, who put together the Johnson Fellowship. But thank you guys so much for this opportunity to come back. I always say it means everything when your university invites you back. It's essentially you all claiming me, that they think I've done good to the point that they don't mind telling people that I belong to you guys. So I usually don't get a chance to come back and be recognized in this way. I'm just here to kind of hang out and advise a little bit. But really, guys, I can't thank you all enough for having me back and the opportunity for me and Sabine and my whole family's up here on the front row. So really appreciate it.
Do you have a favorite memory here at the university? Something that just like sticks out to you?
You know what? A lot of people don't know this, but I was with the basketball program in a capacity for a couple years here. Some people know, Foley knows this.
Was it like a walk-on?
Yes, because you all, some will, depending on how old you are, will know this, the names Jesse Pate and Sunday Adebayo, right? And after the university we won the national championship in '94, finished runner-up in '95. I got to campus the fall of '95, and Jesse and Sunday were 2 junior college transfers. And some questions came up about their junior college transfer eligibility. And so they had to sit. And so Jesse was the leading scorer, Sunday was the leading rebounder. And they had to sit while the NCAA was investigating. NCAA went on with the investigation so long. Again, some of you remember this, but they transferred from the university. So Nolan was down 2 scholarship athletes. And because of the recruiting timing, the next year, he was down 2 major spots. So he didn't have enough players to practice competitively in practice at some points because of that. The next year, he had open tryouts for 2 scholarship positions on the basketball team. Every guy who ever touched a basketball showed up at Bud Walton Arena for tryouts. I was one of those guys. Now he ends up going with these 2 studs, the one 6'7", 6'8" guy, fine. But I got a call and Nolan decided to keep an extra 7 walk-ons in the program that he would have just kind of a crop of guys in case something happened, some other injury, some other investigation, whatever. And we had essentially a JV team that we had to go play NAIA schools, Division II schools, junior colleges. I was a part of that team, and his son, who was an assistant, was my head coach on that team. So you talk about memories. I know I got folks here, Aaron and Robin, these 2 I was in college with them. in the journalism program, and they know I was, and Foley knows, and a lot of people know that story, but I was a ball player here for a little while. Never got in a game with the main squad, ever, but we had to practice with them, and also we had our own practice and our own schedule. So that was a memory from the University of Arkansas that, yo, I could ball, man.
Do you miss those days? Do you ever wish you could go back on the court?
I wish, yes, but now it's not even a matter of age. A good friend of mine, Tony Harris, was an anchor at CNN. We were there together, and I would go play pickup ball, and he would always tell me, don't, man, you get hit in the face. These guys have jobs. You have a career. Like, he would always tell me.
You gotta protect the moneymaker, right?
He said, you gotta protect your face, man. He said, either go play in a mask, put on a mouthpiece, but he discouraged me from playing ball. I haven't played competitively or pick up like that in a long time.
Right, you've got an important job now. You're working for Good Morning America.
It's just
correct?
a job. It's just a job.
So you have a regular job.
I have a regular job.
Right.
Yes.
Good Morning America is with ABC, but of course you didn't start there. So tell me a little bit about the first couple of jobs that you had coming right out of college.
I drove 66 miles from here to Joplin, Missouri, delivered my resume tape to KSN TV, and I was hired on the spot as a producer. But I would go in, I worked 7 days a week because I would work on the weekends just so I could report. I did it for about 2 months, then I got a reporter gig when it opened up, and then I became the weekend anchor. I was only in Joplin about 9 or 10 months. Moved to Little Rock, I was a weekend anchor for 3 years, then moved to the NBC O&O in San Francisco, then moved to CNN, then left CNN and did a gig with BET for a year, went to MSNBC for about a year and a half, and then I some kind of way ended up at Good Morning America. And
so you bounced around to a lot of different stations, and so you've told a lot of different stories, I'm sure.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite one?
I have some favorite trips. I have some favorite. One of my favorite stories was one I did recently, which had an impact with Johnny Manziel. It was an important story. It had to do with mental health, but Johnny Manziel is a big story and it got a lot of play. But also, it had this. I mean, a guy who's trying to get his life together, who has been in the forefront. How much have we heard about Johnny Manziel over the past 5, 7 years? Just his journey and him admitting that he is bipolar now and taking medication for being bipolar. And that it sparked a conversation not just about him, but about mental illness and about men. But that interview was a big deal because, he opened up in a way to me that I would say some of that had to do with me being from Arkansas, him being from Texas, and that we spent time together on campus. First time I'd ever met him. But we just walked around and were just hanging out as two guys, and he just got comfortable. So when the camera started rolling, he opened up in a way that he might not have opened up to other folks. That's stuff you're proud of, not that just,
Absolutely.
wow, I asked him a really tough question. No, part of the job sometimes is just making someone feel good, feel comfortable, feel like they're in a good place with you. Then it allows them and makes them want to open up. And that was just the one recent here that I like. But there's been a lot of human interest stories. There've been a lot of reunion stories. There've been a lot of, more so when you get a chance to honor people for the work they do and to recognize folks. And more so the feel-good stories are the ones you walk away really proud of.
So how do you get someone to open up to you like that? Do you prefer to take them on walks instead of, just sitting down across the table? Or how do you get them to tell you the story and get emotional?
It's what has worked for me. And I do think it has something to do with me being from Arkansas. I'm raised in a place where, and again, just the nature of who we are here in the South. We're just
Southern gentlemen, right?
We're just down home folks. We are different. We welcome people. We're warm in a different way. And so often people will, when you have a tough interview, certainly. If I'd have sat down with Johnny and had a list of notes and cards and reading questions one by one, he would have felt like he was being interrogated or interviewed versus feeling like he was having a conversation with someone. And that has been the thing that has worked for me over the years, is that I don't go into an interview with notes or I prepare, but I don't sit down and read question. That's how you miss things a lot of times.
Right.
He said, because I didn't ask him a question about his mental health. I asked him whatever question and he just started talking. And all of a sudden he said, yeah, I'm taking medication for bipolar and blah, 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 and da, 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 da. And I sat up and said, wait a minute, wait. Say what now? You're taking medication? So you miss things when you're actually not listening. You're having a conversation and it shouldn't be an interview. And that's what has kind of paid off and worked for me over the years, and it certainly worked in that interview with him.
And I know that Professor Foley says that a lot about you, or talks about how important that is that you don't script things, and you tell the producers to turn off the teleprompter, and you just go for it and you just tell the story. I mean, what advice do you have for young journalists to step away from the script and do things just based on their research?
It really is a matter of just knowing what you're talking about. Any story, I trained myself. I didn't get to talk to you all about this in the class early, but it's another method I use is that very early on, and again, if it's, are there broadcast students in here? Where are they? A few here on the side, woo! Every story you do, right? You toss to a package, you toss to a piece. I always said early on, because when you're in a smaller market, there's more of a chance of this happening. If your piece doesn't roll, if that piece doesn't roll or something, the wrong piece airs, if it goes down, you should be able to stand there in front of that camera and tell that story, no problem, without needing a script, without needing nothing. You should be able to just tell that story. If you know what you're talking about, you're gonna be fine. And I prepare for a story or interview with the Speaker of the House, with Johnny Manziel, or a story about who Taylor Swift just broke up with this week. Exactly the same. You know everything you can know about it, and you sit there and you're confident about what you're talking about. So that's the thing that works for me. I hate being scripted. I hate reading on television. I hate reading on television is the thing.
So do you think that's what helped you break out of those smaller markets like Joplin and Little Rock? Or how do you think you were able to get from there to San Francisco and New York and big markets like that?
I mean, you get some breaks. You get a little lucky. You get blessed. Hopefully somebody thinks you're good, but you have a good system or a good support system around. You got a good team. You got good reps. You got something. I mean, you stay at it and you work at it, and it's going to hopefully work out. That's what I say to every journalism student. Look, whatever it is, if you decide that's what you want to do, stick with it, and it's going to work out. Maybe not exactly how you thought, maybe not the timing, but it's going to work out if you decide that's what you want to do. And again, I've just been lucky along every step, and now every misstep, every mistake, every downtime, every time I was turned down for an interview, every time I was turned down for a job, it was the worst thing at the moment, but it got me sitting here in front of you guys at this point. So everything clearly worked out. I think it at least worked out. So I encourage everybody, stick. If that's what you want to do, stick with it, and it is going to work out, even though it's not going to be exactly how you thought it would.
What's the most notable mistake that you can think of that kind of helped you propel your career to what it is now?
You know what? Working with BET was a huge misstep on my part. I learned a lot about the business in terms of contracts, in terms of handshakes, in terms of making sure you get exactly what you want in the language you want in a contract. I learned a lot about that. I learned not to trust people in that.
What happened? What caused you not to trust people?
Well, in that situation, a lot of people, if you don't know, I went from CNN and I did a show that was supposed to be geared toward the black community on BET, a nightly show. And it meant a lot to me to do so. I didn't have to leave CNN. I made that call to do so because it meant something to me. It really was important to me to have a show like that on the air. But I found, we went through 4, 5, 6 months of talks and negotiations for me to get comfortable with what was going on. And there was a lot of assurances and guarantees and promises, and we're all on the same page. And yes, TJ, that's the show we want to do too, the show you want to do. And as soon as I get over there, they flip the script, they want something else. They want a different type of show. What they wanted was a daily show for black people. I'm not a comedian. There's no way if anybody would have said to me that's what they wanted, I just would have said, I'm not your guy. I'm not going to do that. Got there, and that's what they wanted. They didn't want a more serious show. They wanted my personality, but they didn't want the type of topics I wanted to tackle. So it was a battle every single day over there, and it was just awful. I actually learned afterwards that people in a lot of meetings that I had with BET, they were instructed not to use the words funny or comedy in the meetings.
So it's a way to trick you into thinking that you were able to tell the stories that you wanted to tell.
It was a coup for them to get me on board, right? I had a better reputation nationally, if you will, than BET did when I joined them.
Absolutely.
Right? So it was a big deal to, all right, we got this guy from CNN is coming over here, so it must, right? It gave them kind of a boost where people were like, wow, maybe BET is about to
Making them look
get it
good
together
instead of making you look
It
good.
was awful. It was a horrific experience, but I learned a lot. And that horrific experience got me to where I am now. It was all a part of my journey.
So you wish you would have maybe stayed with CNN and then gone
Nope.
from there to Good Morning America? Or
Nope, I probably never would have got the Good Morning America gig, right? It was all a part of the process. It's all a part of the journey. My mom has been telling me this. She used to tell me this right when I was going through the process of interviewing and whatnot. Like, go pop a bottle of champagne and celebrate just that you got the interview, because you still got a lot farther than a lot of other people did, even if you don't get the job. I learned this along the way that it's only a failure if you fail to learn the lesson of what you went through.
right.
It does not matter that it didn't work out the way you think it should have. I learned a lot from that, and it's so valuable in every contract and business and everything I've done afterwards. It put me on the path. It got me to New York full time. It made me move to New York full time, where I had to be there to be with MSNBC, that then opened up the opportunity to ABC. It all worked out.
Right, it all worked out, but it was kind of a negative experience for you. So which station would you say that you've had the most positive experience with?
Probably CNN, because, one second. They've been different. No, my sister's up here talking. She's been with me through all these stations, and she hears all the stories. But they're all just different, and you balance out where you live, where you get to work, who you get to work with, the opportunities you get, the airtime you get, the type of stories you get to do, the money that you make, what it allows for your life. And you balance all that out, and really, guys, they're all just kind of a crappy lifestyle when you're really going down. No, it's just you deal with stuff at every place. You got to deal with the little junk. You got to deal with this. Right, I got a great schedule, but my boss sucks. All right, now I got a great boss, but man, I got to get up at 4 a.m. I mean, you kind of balance out. So
how do you deal with something like that? You know, what motivates you to keep doing it? You know, even if you have a bad schedule or a bad boss or something like that.
I mean, come on, there's some good perks, sister. Come on now, some good perks to the gig. Don't get me wrong.
What's your favorite perk? All of them.
No, look, okay, can we be honest here for a second? No, I was just like, please don't be honest tonight. I got to go to Rio to cover the Olympics in 2016. I got to go to London for a week and never got on the air, but I got to kick it for a week in London on the ABC's dime. I got to go to Athens for a month to cover the Olympics back in 2004. I got to go to South Africa to cover the rhino poaching situation there. I've been to the last 3 World Series, last 3 NBA Finals, the last 2 Super Bowls, the last 2 Final Fours. I have gotten to do some cool stuff. And look, the job pays okay. I mean, look.
It didn't start paying okay though, right? In Joplin?
No, I was talking to you guys about this earlier. True story, my first job out of here, Joplin, Missouri, contract $17,000 a year. This is my first job out of school. And I was telling them earlier that I called the station, not too many years ago, because I wanted a copy of my contract. I couldn't find it. And I hold on to that thing. I keep it in a safe place, because anytime I'm having a bad day, I pull that thing out. And I read through it down to the line. It says 17,000. And then I go open a fine bottle of wine and say, this ain't bad. So no, it's just, look, there are some perks. Look, I get up in the morning, a guy is there to pick me up in a black car and drop me off at a studio where there are photographers outside taking your picture. I'll walk in and I'll work with Michael Strahan, Robin Roberts, and George Stephanopoulos. Every single day, some huge star is walking through our hallways. You just get, I can't believe, every day, these are friends of mine, I still have to pinch myself that I get to walk into a studio every day and work with these people. It's just, some of it's just cool and it's fun and you can't believe it. So yeah, the perks of it, I mean, that stuff's cool.
So what advice do you give to young journalists who have that, $17,000 contract and think, journalism, it, doesn't pay well, I don't like where I am. What advice do you have for them to keep going and keep trying to strive for a better market?
Oh no, stick it out if that's what you want to do. And it's not all about money. Again, the BET gig, I was willing, that's not a good example, but let me finish the story. I was willing to take a pay cut to do that BET gig. It was not all about money. I say I shouldn't tell it because I did not have to take a pay cut, but I was willing to do so. I made that decision on a flight back from New York with my wife. We decided, if the number's this, which is lower than what I was making at CNN, I'll take it. So it's not all about money. You can have a good living. You can have a good living as a reporter in Denver, as a reporter in Phoenix, as a reporter in Chicago. You can have a great living. It's not all about money, but it's just a matter of stick with it and it'll work out for you. It will work out.
Something else that I've talked to other young journalists about that might deter them from going into this is the relationship of the media with our president and the idea of fake news and, just completely discrediting, the work that, journalists do. We're trying to get the truth out there and then having it called fake news. Has that affected your career, or how does that help affect you?
No, Donald Trump is getting us all paid. I mean, let's just, bottom line, we beefed up our DC bureau. There are people who can directly thank Donald Trump for their jobs. That's bottom line. CNN is one that's, people use that example a lot, but they made a conscious decision to go after this guy in a certain way, and the numbers pay off, right? So we can argue all day we want, and you're right, he has that mega microphone and that bully pulpit, and he can stand up there and say fake news, and we have to cover the guy who's calling us fake news, right?
Right.
He is a master manipulator of media, and it's brilliant. What he is able to do with the media is brilliant, and if it hurts us, what it does is it leaves us very little room for mistakes, because every time one does happen, he can go, I told you. We've had a couple of incidents at ABC where something happened. We had a reporter had a story that actually affected the stock market. His reporting affected the stock market, right? It lost hundreds of points that day because of our reporters reporting, and he was wrong. President Trump went nuts on that. We laid that out for him, but a mistake was made. So that makes things a little more difficult. But him, just as far as being a story, does gangbusters for us and for the media. And a lot of people have jobs and ratings are up a lot of ways because people cover Donald Trump.
And I know we talked about this in class a little bit too. You said you have a friend who made an active decision to, chase the hot story and, talk about Donald Trump and things like that. And you don't completely agree with that.
No,
so why?
We're in an age now where folks, you can, right, you get one hot YouTube video, you get one hot tweet, you get one hot Instagram post, you have one hot story and somebody can become a household name. And a lot of folks, look, Megyn Kelly is a good example of this. She was doing fine at Fox, don't get me wrong, but she became a household name because she got into it with Donald Trump. And a lot of people see him and his willingness to engage, even on Twitter, as if I can get the president to talk about me, that's going to be good for my career. that's a lot of what's happening with the social media age now, that you actually can become a star. You just need to light some fire to get somebody talking about you. I'm not built like that. Some people don't care what you say about them as long as you're talking about them. I'm just not built that way, but a lot of people are now trying to find something to just set people off. You know, we talk about Twitter trolls and things like this. A lot of folks in the media industry are just looking they need a moment, and sometimes taking on the president in ways that I'm not comfortable with are the things that get them known.
So you choose not to chase those, hot button issues just to get that one, minute of fame, or, try to blow up your career. So what kind of stories do you like to chase? What stories are important to tell?
I am very much, again, I was at CNN, education, politics was big for me. Anything engaging the black community, certainly having to do with young black men. A lot of those stories, as you know, with the relationship between police and the black community, those were things I loved to do. And again, that was something why I really liked the BET gig, or at least initially was attracted to it. Now at ABC, it's more so with Good Morning America, I get the opportunity to do these field where you get to honor someone, you get to recognize a member of a community and surprise them with some, I don't know, community event. You get to, it's more so, I'd like to, more human interest stories, and I've gotten a chance to do a number of those that really you feel good when you walk off the set. There have been several really memorable ones for me at Good Morning America. That's more so the stuff I get to do now that I really appreciate.
So going back to the stories about the black community and why you went on to BET to tell those kinds of stories, we have a question from the audience talking about that. So the question was, what is it like being a male minority in a predominantly white industry? Do you feel like you have to fight twice as hard to get half as far?
My issue, or to answer that question, is that I am in a business that's subjective anyway, right? I could be, my boss now could love me. As soon as my boss gets fired, the next guy coming in could hate me. But so often I am being judged, not so often, always, I am being judged by people sitting around a table that look nothing like me. I've been in a number of, we've seen these meetings from CNN to every single media organization I've worked for. There's somebody sitting around a table making a fate about my career that doesn't look like me, doesn't understand me, doesn't come from where I come from. They don't, not that they don't like me, he's a nice guy or whatever else, but they're making this, the people that are essentially judging you don't look like you, can't relate to you. And Byron Pitts is somebody who told me this story. Yeah, well, not a story, but when you play pickup basketball, you have two captains. And everybody's going to pick the guy from the office who used to play for Georgia Tech. And all right, I'm going to pick that guy, he's 6'8". I'm going to pick that guy there, he had 2 years in the NBA. And you pick that guy over there who's, right? You pick the studs first. And then after that, everybody just starts picking who they're comfortable with. That's my friend I go to lunch with, and he'll play good defense. Okay, that's my boy there, he can make it from the baseline. He said that's what it's like in the industry for us. And that I know a lot of you all have watched TV before and thought, how did they get that job? How do they keep getting jobs? What's happening is people are sitting around the table, and everybody's going to pick Katie Couric, everybody's going to pick the studs. But after that, they start picking people that look like them, that they're comfortable with. And that ain't ever me. It's never, ever me in every job I've had. So that becomes a challenge, and we have diversity initiatives, and right, you don't want to be, nobody wants to be picked just to meet a quota, and we got diversity on the air. But so much of it is behind the scenes. It doesn't matter if tomorrow you wake up and Good Morning America, every single anchor and reporter is black. I can guarantee you that every single producer, executive producer, and senior producer is white. You have my word at Good Morning America. They just promoted one young lady not too long ago, but as soon as they promoted her up, they created a new position above her that she has to answer to. And my sister's back there laughing, she's like, Yes, it happened. Yes, I see you, sister. It's all right. A lot of people can relate. We fought to get this young lady a promotion to the level she should be at. And then they created a brand new position that she has to now answer to. That's the reality of what we deal with oftentimes behind the scenes, and that is certainly a challenge that we're working on.
So what advice do you have for people who are trying to fight that? I mean, how do you have that happening and still continue to rise up the ranks?
Be in the room. You have to be, there are folks who fought at CNN ahead of me. There are folks who, certainly Byron Pitts has been a mentor of mine for a decade now. You have to be in the room, and you have to understand that whatever I'm fighting, you have to understand you are not going to always be the beneficiary of your efforts. There's somebody in this room or somebody at this journalism program coming up behind me that's going to benefit from what I am doing at Good Morning America. And you have to understand somebody's coming behind you. It's my fight, but I am not going to be the beneficiary. So you have to keep that in mind. If you're in there fighting for you and I want this and I want that, it's not going to work. We, again, a lot of people don't know this story, that we at Good Morning America, we at ABC, all of the African American talent at ABC got together and went in to the ABC president and demanded that we get African American senior producers and executive producers. None of us are going to benefit from that effort. None of us. But we understood how it's important to have those folks in the room and contributing to the editorial content.
When did that happen?
This is about a little over a year that initiative has been going on. And it's bared some fruit, but we have to understand it's for the folks that are coming up behind us. So encourage folks, you just have to understand it's not all about you. Somebody's coming up behind you. But if you're not willing to be in that fight, if you're not willing to raise your voice, if you're not willing to be in the room, and another part of it is it's very difficult to be the only one in the room. To raise your hand and say, hey, guys, y'all probably shouldn't be covering that story like that. That feels a little icky, right? You remember the ESPN when they did the auction for the, you know what I'm talking about, brother? ESPN, they did a football, essentially we're auctioning off players. And the clip that aired was all white people sitting in an audience like this, bidding on a black player. How long did it take y'all to figure out that that's probably not the right thing to do? Who was sitting, somebody was missing from that room to say, you know what, guys? It's not a good look. And that thing went on the air, and ESPN had to issue an apology. Things like that get missed when you don't have diversity in the room. Now, it's not just of race, but a diversity of regions, right? There's things that I will talk about and be interested in that somebody from New York will, or somebody from California, or wherever it may be. So you just need diversity, and we oftentimes have Northwestern elites and folks who have Northeastern elites and just have a certain mindset, and there's no diversity in the room.
Diversity is something that Professor Foley and a lot of the professors here really focus on and want us to use in our stories. So how do you incorporate diversity in your stories that you're telling?
Well, again, you have to think about what you have an audience. Who's the audience? Who's watching? It's not just people that look like me. It's not people that look like you. It's not just men. It's not just women. It's not just old. It's not just young. You have to try to consider, and oftentimes in my stories, I will walk around that studio in our building in Times Square, and I will ask this 25-year-old young white girl what she thinks about the story, the 40-year-old black guy who's a father of two, Oscar, who's our guy who handles all of our food, who has 3 sons. I will ask all of them, like, if you heard this, would that be interesting? Which part is interesting to you? And I incorporate that oftentimes. I get more help from our staff in that way than I do from any producer. So that is kind of how I sometimes measure stories and what's interesting to people, by actually talking to as diverse a group as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you said you interview a wide variety of people to make sure that you get everyone's opinion. Mm-hmm. Is there one interviewer, one person that you've met that's just really changed, maybe not changed your life, but really had an impact on you? Somebody
I've interviewed?
Mm-hmm.
Change? Man. There were some folks I met. This guy named Royce and his wife. This was one of those stories I felt really good about. And it was one of the saddest and most encouraging story about people that I've done. He and his wife were having a child. It was their second child, and they learned early on that the child had a condition with the brain, that the child wasn't going to live beyond a matter of minutes, hours, or at most days, right? They learned this early, and they had a chance to terminate the pregnancy, but they decided to carry the child full term, knowing the child would perish, so they could actually donate the child's organs. I sit down with I go to Oklahoma City to do the story, and I walk in, and I'm just kind of down, expecting them to be a certain way. And they were just happy and upbeat, and they were so comfortable in what they were doing, and their decision. These were folks who were Christians, and they said there was no way. It wasn't a matter of having that decision that we weren't going to terminate the pregnancy. They said we thought we were against abortion before. They said, but we considered it. And they said people do not know what they'll do until you're faced with that decision. And they taught me just a lot about being a good human being, and a lot about so much. I mean, can you imagine that argument that people would have had on Twitter about a story, about something like that? You don't know what you will do until you're put in that position. And I thought it was just an incredible selfless act. They were the warmest people, and that was one story that got me, that really got me. So that was last May, I think it was. So it was fairly recent, but that was one that certainly stands out in my career.
I mean, that's incredible. Is there a way that you interview people when it's really emotional, and a different way that you interview children, or the way that you interview someone for a lighter story? I mean, how do you adapt to the people that you're talking to and the stories that you're covering?
You just listen. I mean, you sit down. Everybody in here, if all of you all went one-on-one out, right, talk to everybody in here one-on-one, you'd be able to tell what kind of mood folks are in, right? Look at my daughter right now, she's sleepy. I would talk to her a certain way, right? I look at my sister right now, she's drunk. I would talk to her a certain way. I look at my man back there in the baseball cap. He's kind of chill. He's yawning, right? My man, you can feel everybody out as you're looking at him. Some folks are ready to will go clubbing. Some people need to get their Adderall. Some people are ready to go, right? My brother, he's like, oh, he know me, right? No, everybody, you can feel out how they are by looking at them, and you know what you can get away with. There are days, even with George and Robin, I had to feel their moods out in the morning. Like, ooh, George ain't in the mood for this today. Ooh, Robin had wine last night. Ooh. It's that simple. And whether with kids, some kids are more outgoing, whether it's an emotional story. Like I said, I was expecting one thing with that couple. I walk in and they cheer me up, right? You feel out. It's key to just be a human being, and sometimes we forget to do that in this business.
Absolutely. Well, Professor Foley, as you saw, just handed me this gift.
What is this?
It's definitely not for me.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to go ahead and gift you a little bit of backstory.
Do I need to open this here?
Open it right now.
Right? Oh, wow. Hey, I don't have to answer to you anymore for that. Look, I got my C from your class. I'm good now. Right?
He handpicked it just for you.
Foley picked this out?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this ought to be good, y'all. Is there, as I'm opening, is there another audience question? I'm sorry, I like the...
Yeah, absolutely. Another audience question is, let's see, what is your favorite restaurant in Fayetteville now that you're here?
Oh my goodness, is the AQ Chicken House still open or not? Okay, y'all tell me, that's closed now. What Doe's? I couldn't afford to go to Doe's.
It's very expensive.
When I was here. But I could take all y'all tonight if y'all want to. I told y'all this business pays as well. Yeah, what else? What did I eat up there, Tish?
Ham and cheese is really unique to Fayetteville.
It's what
again?
Like
that one? Ham and cheese, it's that grilled cheese sandwich place.
That wasn't my spot. What is it?
Hugo's?
Oh, I love some Hugo's. They still do. They used to have like quarter beer nights or something.
Yeah.
It was something they used to do. All right, let me see here. Oh, good Lord Jesus. Is this the original?
You got it.
Is it really? All right, let me tell you all this. He talked about his the Mustang. All right, the convertible Mustang. It was red, right? All right, and when I was in school here, he was too old for that car then, right? So it was the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen in your life. And he thought he was cool as a fan, right? Cool, khakis with the pleats, right? And he was just in it chilling. He was cool. But it had UATV on it. What's his license plate? Don't you? Oh, that's not sweet. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Where are you gonna put it?
His wife is probably telling him to get rid of this damn thing for years. Now he got an excuse. I'll make it a gift. Won't even cost the department anything. That is absurd. Say what? Oh my goodness. But yes, this was Foley back in the day. But really, guys, this was that department and this university put me on the path to where I am. And people always, I talk about Arkansas in the air a lot. Anytime I see somebody from Arkansas that comes to visit GMA that's outside with a sign, grab them and bring them in, or go take a picture with them. I was wearing Razorback cufflinks the other day, not to get them on the air, but just because I was getting dressed that morning, Arkansas was playing, and I just put them on. But this university, I'm so proud to be from Arkansas. I'm proud of where I am and where I'm from. I'm proud of the state, right? I hope that comes off. I'm not doing it to, right? Like, I'm so proud of, hey, yeah, I'm from Arkansas. We're doing great in SEC football this year. Yeah, right? Well, that's not something to brag about sometimes. Yeah, what did Coach Bielema say? Oh, yeah, it's Arkansas, right? And I got so much crap about the stuff Brett Bielema said. But it's my school, and this is everything, and I am where I am because of the University of Arkansas, so it's really.
And as you can tell, we're very proud of you too.
Why?
And we're very happy that you came tonight.
Well, no, thank you guys. And again, I can't thank the Johnsons enough. I am here, and you all are here, and everything because they thought enough of me to bestow this honor upon me, and they've been great in town. They got me ripping and running, and got Sabine and I jumping in and out of golf carts and meeting folks and shaking hands and busy all day. But this is just when your university invites you back, right? I'm not just here and came for a game and said hi. I was actually invited back because my university wants to claim me. That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Well, DJ, it was a pleasure talking
Oh
to you.
no, thank you, Dr. Bustamante, as they say, right?
That is, I don't have that.
Okay.
Definitely still a student. All right, well, thank you again, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your
Of
time.
course I will. Of course I will. Can I get a chain and hang this around my... See?
All right, guys, let's give one more round of applause for TJ.